Voices united, no one's too small. Alex and Ivan cried out loudly the truth. Scream for justice like a fever-broken youth. Every word's a bullet tearing through the night. In this war of words, the soldiers in the fight. Voices united, no one's too small. Alex and Ivan cried out loudly the truth. Scream for justice like a fever-broken youth. Every word's a bullet tearing through the night. In this war of words, the soldiers in the fight.
Good evening. This is SITREP PH, the podcast on Philippine issues and Filipino interests. This is Karen from the Philippines. Our guest this evening is a graduate of the Philippine Military Academy class of 1987. He spent his career in the Philippine Navy, where he retired as Vice Commander in 2019. Joining us tonight is Admiral Romel Jude Ong. Good evening, Admiral.
Good evening, Karen. Thank you for inviting me to this podcast.
Oh, I'm also a guest co-host, Admiral. Sir, I would like to ask something about you. Tell us more about yourself po. How come when you joined the Philippine Navy, were you already thinking about this, or did you decide this when you were still at the PMA?
Okay, there are two sides to it. No? Number one, my late father was also with the Philippine Navy. He was also an academy graduate. So he had a strong influence sa akin. Okay?
Mm.
But the second aspect to that is yung system na dinatnan namin sa PMA that time, you select your branch of service through, we call it draw lots eh. Yung we draw lots, kung ano yung mabunot mo kumbaga na branch of service, doon ka pupunta. So it happened na ang nabunot ko na actually Philippine Constabulary. Okay. Then pwede mo ipalit. So what I did was may classmate ako na would prefer to join the PC noon, yung Philippine Constabulary. So we exchange kumbaga. So I took his slot sa Navy and he took my slot sa Constabulary. So ganoon nangyari.
Pwede pala yun. Draw lots and then swap. So,
Yes.
parang sir ha? Generational wealth. Pinana sa tatay. So, sir, tell us something interesting about your experience when you were with the Philippine Navy. Paano kayo nagsimula? May mga exciting stories po ba kayo na pwede pa nating ikwento sa inyong mga apo sa tuhod?
Actually, hindi naman exciting I wouldn't call it exciting, no? Kasi the Navy is a service. So it's parang a calling eh. Okay. So, and it's a 24/7, 365-day calling. So parang while you're in the service, nilaan mo na yung time and effort mo, yung buhay mo to make sure that you perform your job based on yung mandate na given sa'yo. So, from a temporal perspective, that you start from the bottom, okay? So, yung pinaka-exciting part na namin siguro nung ako'y junior officer is yung, we call it standing watch. That's when you are on duty dun sa barko, okay? So, you stand watch, and you try to navigate yung barko as it conducts patrol in different parts ng Pilipinas. So it's not, from a layman's perspective, medyo boring, but sa amin exciting na yun. Kasi you feel the challenge eh. You're out there at sea, standing watch, so parang you are in between yung you're putting yourself in between yung potential harm's way and making sure that
Mhm.
it doesn't affect the rest of us Filipinos, kumbaga. So it's
Oh.
parang ganun.
Sir, di parang vocation din po, ano?
Yeah, vocation 'yon. Vocation talaga 'yon. Parang priesthood din 'yan eh.
Oo nga.
Ah, parang priesthood din 'yan eh. So you subscribe to that life, yung lifestyle. But of course, there comes a point in time you also grow up, then you have a family. So medyo nagbabago ngayon yung marami na ngayon pumapasok na factors affecting yung lifestyle mo. So you have to balance between life, yung family, tsaka yung yung work mo.
Mhm. So, sir, nung nag-retire po kayo and then now you're with the Ateneo School of Government, no? As a professor of praxis.
Yes, I retired 2019. So a few months later on, I started nag-orient muna ako. Then they sort of dahan-dahan I was integrated into the academic life dun sa School of Government. And later on, I was running yung some of the electives namin doon.
Sir, ano po ang ibig sabihin ng professor of praxis when you're
Okay.
with the Ateneo School of Government?
They had to yung academic department head namin had to kumbaga designate yung namin, yung position namin doon sa school. So ang na nila is professor of praxis. Praxis is practice. So
Right.
hindi lang naman ako ang professor of praxis sa School of Government. There are others. And majority of them actually were either senior cabinet officials or senior officers in previous administrations in government. So ang kumbaga, as opposed to theory, what we do is teach and it is based on experience while we were serving in government. While others, yung the more academic one would be teaching it based on theory. Pero as far as School of Government, majority of us are practitioners in the field that we are teaching.
So application po, no? At ang swerte naman ng inyong mga students, sir. They're very lucky to have someone like you and others as well to learn from your experience. So, sir, babalik po tayo doon sa ating pinag-uusapan kanina. No? Nung na-assign po kayo sa Philippine Navy and then you were saying you were patrolling RCs. Naikot po ba ninyo yung buong Pilipinas? Were you able to go around the Philippines?
Well, yes and no. Yes, naikot. But the way nag-progress yung deployment or yung career ko, I was more focused on Mindanao, partly in the Visayas, and dito sa Palawan. I did not get deployed sa Northern Philippines or sa Southern Philippines for the most part. No, during that time na nakabarko ko. Okay.
I see.
So depende yan kumbaga kung saan naka-assign yung barko mo and saan ka na-assign personally.
So, sir, kung Palawan, ibig sabihin, pumapalaot po kayo, were you going out and were you able to go to the Spratlys at that time?
Nung time na yon, hindi pa kasi nung bata pa ako, hindi pa ganong ka-tense yung situation compared now. Okay? So I was mostly assigned sa patrol ship most of the missions doon sa Spratlys at that time were transport ships kasi they were providing supplies or logistics to the to those features and islands that we occupy, which we still occupy now. Okay, so mostly yung patrol namin would be in the southern part of Palawan, yung border the one bordering with Malaysia. So yun yung focus namin.
That's interesting. Sige, sir. Alam naman po natin, our topic for this evening would touch more on the West Philippine Sea and the issues that we're facing. But before we go there, I would like to ask first, this is a question from our friend Ivan. What are your thoughts on the latest modernization funding for the AFP? Or again, to take another step back, can you tell us, sir, how the Philippine Navy now compares to the Philippine Navy when you were still in active service? And perhaps a bit of a comparison of the challenges and capabilities?
Okay, nung bata-bata pa ako, we were using vessels that were constructed during the Second World War. Okay, ni-refurbish lang
Oh,
natin. So basically yun yung fleet, yun yung majority ng fleet natin. Okay? Sometime around 2016, when I was already a senior officer, I participated in crafting yung what we call the capability plan. So that was the basis for the current modernization ng Navy. And the other services have their own capability plans to kumbaga para iporma yung kanya respective capability plan, respective modernization plans ng different services. Okay? So in a way I was glad that I was able to kumbaga participate in crafting yung refleeting program ng Navy. Now, going back to your question about modernization, maybe not necessarily specific to the Navy, but the entire modernization program, pwede mo sabihin na it's not enough. Okay. But if you step back and you are a responsible government official, you have to also consider there are other priorities ng government that we need to address, like education, health, public health. So hindi mo naman pwedeng sabihin doon mo lang ibubuhos sa modernization yung program. Okay? So you have to balance it out with the other priorities of government. Now, having said that, going specifically to the modernization, siguro dapat tayo matuwa that the government now is putting money to make sure that we are able to upgrade yung ating capabilities. Ang personal concern ko lang naman dito, and this is a concern of all yung defense planners or force planners, is there's such thing as yung factor of obsolescence. Okay? Para bang bumili ka ng refrigerator, but hindi mo siya mabili. Let's say you plan to buy a refrigerator for your home, but of course you do not have that money now. Okay? You have to kumbaga mag-ipon. But by the time na nabili mo na yan, let's say 10 months later, may mga bagong technologies na pumasok that kumbaga yung pinag-ipon mo na pera, tapos na-i-commit mo na to buy that specific item, then tapos yung current technologies now makes that item already obsolete or hindi na siya ganun ka modern. So yun yung iba-balance out mo. Kasi modernization planning takes time.
right.
Okay? And it's yung hindi mo naman siya pwedeng gustuhin mo siyang madaliin. But we need to put in place yung yung mga check and balances and all those bells and whistles to make sure that yung integrity and fidelity ng transaction from start to finish is above board and corruption free. Okay, so yun yung ibabalance mo You want it to be as much possible is a clean transaction, but may may opportunity cost doon na iti-take consideration mo rin.
Opo. So, in short, hindi na yung latest model. Although, when you were saving up, you were hoping to buy the latest model. Pero kapag nakasave ka na, hindi na pala latest yung kaya mong bilhin. Something like that po, sir?
Parang ganyan. Pero let's give you an example now. We are actually buying the latest of the equipment. I take the example ng Navy. Yung mga frigate na i-acquire natin from South Korea are top of the line.
Mhm.
But there are what we call yung emerging technologies that may make that technology obsolete. For example, if you are tracking yung what's happening in yung conflict between Ukraine and Russia right
Yes.
now, okay? You have Russia, which has modern ships, fighting Ukraine, which has no ships. But if you look at the result of yung outcome nung nila, yung pagtutunggali nila sa dagat, sa Black Sea, yung Ukraine, basically using drones and missile systems, land-based missile systems, was able to check or to actually almost defeat yung Black Sea Fleet without actually
Mhm.
deploying a ship. So, parang nagsiswing kasi yung technology over the centuries between
Right.
defense and offense. Okay? Parang we are now in the cusp of yung situation na ang nag-emerge ngayon na is defense over offense. Okay? So for example, nung panahon ng World War II, the spectrum is leaning towards offense. And what are those offensive weapons? So, yung aircraft carrier, yung destroyers, yung frigates, okay? Land-based aircraft. But now, nagsiswing siya sa defense, it's land-based missile systems versus ships. So yung yung paradigm na yung ship versus fort. Noong unang panahon, it's ship versus castles. Okay?
Right.
Ang
Opo.
labanan. Okay? So, nag-ano lang yan, nagsiswing lang yan over the years. Okay?
Sir, ito po kasi we were talking about the funding, no? We are modernizing the AFP, and then the government is already pouring money into this. And for the Philippine Navy, for example, what can we expect this funding or what would these new funds purchase kaya? What would we need that will be purchased soon, or are we going to buy anything substantial?
Okay, yung force planning kasi takes, as I said earlier, it takes years, no? Pag binili mo yung quote-unquote, binili mo ngayon, you're actually getting it 3 to 7 years down the road. Okay? Kasi it takes time yung transaction and yung construction. Barko, let's say barko lang pinag-usapan natin. So if we buy a ship now, and it's gonna be there 3 years later. Okay?
Mhm.
Now, from what I can recall, yung nasa program ng Navy ngayon, there are 2 frigates that are new. There are 2 corvettes that are supposed to be finished within the next maybe 1 or 2 years, again from South Korea. Then merong 6 other iterations of light corvettes or offshore patrol vessels, also to be built by South Korea. So that's a total of around 10, okay, new combatant vessels, maybe down the road, okay, na modern. But you now go into the question of quantity versus quality.
Right.
And ito kasi yung pag binangga mo sa current situation natin, we're facing an adversary that has perfected yung shipbuilding capacity niya, yung industrial capacity niya. And this is yung this is yung backdrop of any modernization. It's your industrial capacity that will sustain modernization. Kasi right now, ang paradigm natin is we buy things, buy equipment, but we acquire it from other countries. Okay? Okay yan sa peacetime. Kasi if you factor logistics and everything, okay yan sa peacetime. But in situations na medyo tense, you need an industrial capacity to sustain yourself. Now, ang situation ngayon, we're facing an adversary na even the US is having difficulty, okay, in terms of industrial capacity. So, kung makikita mo yung incident na nangyari sa Sabina Shoal lately,
Yes.
then sa Scarborough Shoal, if you're tracking yung civilian convoy ng ating ito nung May 15th, In both instances, they were able to surge around 40 to 45, or maybe an extreme number is 50 uh, vessels from their Navy, Coast Guard, and militia at any given time. So that in itself is a very challenging capability that we're confronted with. So even if you have 10 modern ships, let's say right now, you are dealing with an adversary who can actually generate 50 to 60 or 70 ships at any given time. So so pag binangga mo yan, yung quantity lang yung metric mo, may problema pa rin tayo. Okay? So it cannot be a ship versus ship na calculation lang. Okay? That's why when we were developing yung capability plan noong 2016, we were looking at asymmetric solutions. Kasi when you say symmetric solution, tinapatan mo lang. Okay?
Opo.
But if you're looking for asymmetric solution, you're looking for capabilities that would offset yung shortcomings mo. Okay? And accentuate yung advantage mo. Okay? Kaya in this case, what we arrived at was two solutions. Okay? The first one was a land-based missile system. And that's why we acquired it from India, yung BrahMos anti-ship missile system. Okay? Kasi we don't need ships eh. That system is land-based, so nakalagay lang yan sa malaking truck. Okay? And you can move it around the Philippine archipelago sa lupa. Okay? So yun yung isang solution. Okay, that offsets yung weakness natin in terms of lack of industrial capacity to sustain a shipbuilding a domestic shipbuilding program. The second one na medyo nahirapan ng government kasi medyo expensive is yung submarine. Okay? Nahirapan sila fundingan yun kasi it's a very expensive capability and pinag-aaralan pa I think hanggang ngayon. Kung number one, I think there is an agreement that we need it, but there is of course a debate on can we afford it. Okay. Yun yung doon.
Opo. And the skills that are needed to maintain submarine
capability.
Ano po yung tawag doon, sir? Fleet ba? Or
so we're not buying a fleet kasi siguro mga dalawa squadron. Okay.
Ayun.
Okay. But right now, again, going back to yung nangyari sa if you track yung developments do sa Ukraine-Russian conflict, there's another system that I think pwede nating acquire, and that is unmanned systems, which is relatively more cheaper. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's yung unmanned systems that are able to with the higher speed, undetectable, and pwede mong i-build up yung capacity to build a large fleet of drones. Okay, so this is more I think this is more yung natin I think this is more acceptable in terms of cost, no? Kasi at the end of the day, yung there is such thing as yung, if you use yung business language, yung return on investment mo. Okay?
Yes.
For example, you're not going to shoot a very expensive missile tapos ang target mo is bangka o yung militia vessel. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yung talo ka when you look at cost. Okay? So kumbaga ang paradigm is we need to be able to develop capability which is much cheaper in terms of cost, and we can develop it in terms of also higher volumes. Okay? So cheaper and more of them. Kumbaga yun yung paradigm that we need to look at. Kaya palatable yung drones or unmanned systems as an asymmetric capability that doesn't require us to develop a very comprehensive industrial capacity to support it.
That's right. And for Filipinos, I think it's also more acceptable because it would lessen the risk of lives.
Correct.
So,
Yes, kasi nasa lupa lang yun may control doon.
opo, alam naman natin kapag may namatayan tayo, nagwawala talaga yung madla eh. Alam naman natin syempre, we value lives kasi. Gano'n naman yung orientation nating mga Filipino. So sir, when you were discussing ito pong shipbuilding capabilities, no, I would like to ask, so okay naman, kumusta po yung ating ah, ano yung tawag ninyo? Parang I heard you say something like yung sa Subic, yung dating sa Hanjin dati na binili ng Cerberus and uh, I think they have an agreement with Hyundai, no? Magkaka-shipbuilding facility po ba talaga doon na pwede nating magamit?
Nung binili na Cerberus yun, it's a functional shipyard. It's a functional shipyard.
Mhm.
So it is to my knowledge, it is operating. Ang ano doon is may nakabook ba na construction. Okay. So yun yung
Tama.
question. So
May
parang
umorder
yun?
ba?
May umorder ba? Tapos what type of ships are being built there kung meron man? Okay? So depende. Kasi if you look at yung old setup nung Hanjin, it was building very large vessels for commercial purposes. So ando na yung capability na yon. I hindi ko lang sure kung ano yung dynamic o bakit sinara yun. But I think it's more of political rather than economic. Kumbaga, domestic politics in South Korea has an effect on that business. So yung may-ari nung company na yon. Okay. So but I think it's a viable Remember, while most of yung high-end shipyards in the Philippines are foreign owned, no? But yung manpower, yung skills, Pilipino yun, Pinoy yun Okay? Ang kulang lang sa atin is actually advanced technology, yung technology transfer, tsaka syempre capital. Okay? Para ma-develop yan. And later on, syempre, kailangan may bibili nung what's the point of having a shipyard kung walang magpapagawa sa'yo ng barko. Okay?
Right. Pero sir, di ba, nandun na po, may place din doon yung Philippine Navy? Is that right?
Yeah, yung nung hinati yon north and south, north facility tsaka yung southern facility. Yung southern part, yan yung ni-retain as shipyard. Okay? Which I think is under Aguila Shipyard, Shipbuilding Corporation. Yung northern part, yun yung being leased by the Philippine Navy for the fleet.
So
Okay.
mas nakapasok po, no? Mas nakalabas. Kasi for those of us who are trying to visualize this area that we're talking about, that is within Subic Bay. Subic Bay is within the greater, paano ba? Ano yan how do you call, ano yung bay sa Filipino? Basta nakakuble ng konti.
Yes.
So tama po sir, no? Yung mas nakapasok, yun yung sa Philippine Navy. Tama nga naman. Very for mas protected in short.
Yes, kasi safe yung Subic Bay.
Opo.
Enclosed siya na harbor. Tapos very minimal yung effects of yung weather unless direct hit siya ng typhoon. So that's totally different.
Opo.
But under
Opo,
normal
tama.
conditions, protected harbor siya.
So, sir, it came up in one of the budget hearings recently in Congress that the Philippine Navy is paying billions in that shipyard, which is part of Philippine territory. So, would you like to comment on that?
Okay. Excuse me. Ganito kasi yung background niyan. If you remember, during the previous administration, And the Hanjin was folding up na, di ba? It was closing down. And it was under, I think there were 5 Philippine-based banks na may utang yung Hanjin. Okay? And it was placed under receivership. Okay? So, sa Navy naman, ang intention namin that time was, kasi there were overtures already from Chinese companies to take over Hanjin. Okay? So ang ano namin is how do we stop that transaction. So pumasok kami kumbaga nakigulo kami ro sa negotiation. And we put our foot down, sabi namin, merong national security angle yung yan. It cannot be just a pure business transaction na merong bibili at merong magbebenta. Okay? So from there, ang namin is how do we prevent that shipyard being purchased by a Chinese state-owned company. Okay? Eventually, ang nakabili nga, and you mentioned that earlier, is yung American holding company, yung Cerberus. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But remember, that is a private property. Okay? That is private property, I believe under supervision ng SBMA, ng Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority. But essentially, it's a private property. Okay?
Opo.
So, we are leasing it from the holding company, which is Cerberus, through yung Philippine-based, I think, representative niya. Kasi nga, it's a private owned property. Okay? Pangalawa, we needed a new base, a new facility. Kasi yung na-acquire natin mga barko, yung mga frigates na in-acquire natin sa South Korea, kumbaga, bumili ka ng kotse, walang garahe. Hindi na factor in yung garahe niya. So they were they were berthing dito sa South Harbor sa Manila. And that's not a safe location kasi it's basically open to the public yun eh. And yung Pier 15, I believe, in South Harbor, isa already yung medyo decrepit na, kailangan nang i-repair din. Okay? So parang perfect storm siya eh. You need a new base, you have these new ships, and yung ginagamit mong facility is not up to par. So nagkaroon ang decision nung time na yon was okay, we negotiate, transfer tayo yung fleet transfer doon sa ex-Hanjin shipyard facility, which is what the fleet is now occupying. Is it expensive? Yes, I would agree. But ano yung other options available to us? So far, wala eh. Now, ang tanong doon is, if you find it very expensive, government needs to invest in a new facility para igrahe yung fleet natin. Okay? And you have to look for a new location. Kumbaga ano yan eh, it's a opportunity cost decision eh. If you find it very expensive to rent or lease this private property, what's the other option? The other option is government to specify to a specific site, then magko-construct ka ng new facility doon. Now, titingnan mo na ngayon, i-compare mo ngayon between leasing that property or constructing a new one from startup, from zero. So yun ang ang pag-iisipan natin ngayon kung ano yung mas cheaper. Baka at the end of the day, mas cheaper pa yung mag-lease kaysa construct a new facility. I don't know. Okay? But that is how you decide kung yung direction na gusto mong puntahan in terms of where do you house your fleet now.
Opo. At saka ngayon kasi we need it urgently given the situation, no, sir?
Yes, correct.
At gawa na yung facility. Hindi na tayo magbi-build.
Hindi na, hindi na.
So,
Yun yung advantage na nakita namin noon. Of course, kung ba kapit ka sa patalim eh. Ano yung choice mo? Other
opo,
choice mo.
opo. That's right. You have to look for the best option, especially when you're pressed for time and resources. So, sir, when this was brought up po kasi, I think it was in connection with the MDT. Kasi yung sinasabi nila in Congress and some other uh, opinion makers, yung sinasabi kasi nila, may MDT tayo, tapos etong nakabili, yung Cerberus, is American. Wala ba tayong pakinabang dyan? So, do you think, sir, it
Ah.
is, is that even a valid question?
Ito kasi yung paradigm ng Amerikano eh. And sometimes we struggle with this, no? But it is what it is.
Uh-huh.
Yung business tsaka economy as far as US government is concerned is private sector activity yan. Hindi sila nakikialam dyan.
Mhm.
So Cerberus is a private company. So totally labas ang US government dun sa transaction na yun. Okay. They can craft or create policies to make it convenient for private sector nila, US private sector to operate. But they cannot order private sector to do specific things, lalo na kung it has to do with defense and security. Kumbaga yan eh, transactional lahat yan eh. Government and
Opo.
private sector sa US, from a US perspective, is a transactional relationship. Okay.
That's right. So yan, at least that has been clarified already. So sir, let's move on to the recent developments in the West Philippine Sea, most especially with our defense cooperation with other countries, because we've always been painted by China as a servile country or a servile state to the United States. Of course, that's their propaganda, no? And I think you were one of the few people who discussed that earlier in the previous administration. So, sir, no, I would like you to please elucidate or to expound more on that. Why we are not just being subservient to any country.
Okay. Ang lagi nating sinasabi ngayon is we the Philippines and we Filipinos have agency. That means
Right.
we have the right and we have the ability to create our own destiny. And we have that right to protect our own national interests. Okay? I think it's a struggle, no? Kasi I've encountered it in other media related activities o podcast, no, from other media personalities. Yung mga kababayan natin, they went dun sa chat. When I say na we should not rely on the United States, nagagalit sila. Okay. Nagagalit sila. Kasi ang point ko, bago tayo tumingin sa ibang bansa like yung Amerika, and which is, ang hirap kasi parang nasa DNA na natin yun na parang magkakakonting problema lang, nakatingin ka na sa kabila sa Amerika parang yun yung solution So parang struggle yung sabihin mo na hindi, tayo muna, tumayo tayo sarili nating and tingnan natin kung paano natin naayusin to on our own. Pwede tayo mag-cooperate pero hindi tayo yung sasabihan kung ano yung gagawin natin. Okay? So mahirap na minsan mahirap itindig yung ganun pananaw lalo na yung mga medyo nakakatanda na ng kapwa natin mga Pilipino, medyo may set on their ways na. But ganun yung natin. We have agency. We have our own national interest. We protect our own. Kumbaga. Now, we engage other countries like yung US kasi ally natin. And other countries, like-minded democracies. And they are our strategic partners like Japan, Australia, Canada, France, and to some extent, other European Union countries. Kasi we share the same values and we share the same respect for international law. So mayroong convergence of interest on certain areas. Okay? But at the end of the day, dapat ang manaig pa rin yung national interest natin o yung interest ng mga kababayan natin. Hindi yung interest ng ibang bansa.
Right. So, sir, when you talk about these things, no, ito po ba yung dahilan kung bakit recently in the news, after all the things that has happened to us, being attacked and all, in the West Philippine Sea, I think someone mentioned it was in the news that the U.S. offered to help us with I'm not so sure anymore. The U.S. offered us with something, but the DND refused or said not yet.
Okay. I'm not sure about yung calculations of government when they say that, no? But my own personal view is ang tingin ko, we have not yet exhausted all the potential or possible responses we can actually do on our own to address yung challenge posed by yung actions o coercive actions ng China sa West Philippine Sea. Kasi so far, ang nakita ko parang risk averse. So far, risk averse yung posture natin eh. So, ang problema natin, we are facing an adversary which is China. Na we have to accept the fact na ang tinatawag natin doon, meron silang escalation dominance. Because of yung superiority nila in numbers, saka superiority in capabilities, they have escalation dominance. I don't think we have really figured out or actually discussed, at least from me looking from the outside, looking inside, hindi pa natin na-exhaust yung yung possible responses natin na pwedeng i-match yung coercive action ng China. Okay? That's another aspect to it, and we call it yung cross-domain response. Okay?
Actually, that's one question. Oh, sorry. That's one question that I would like to ask because, of course, the Philippines is always expected, and we police ourselves and we act ethically in all things. At least we try to. But if you have an adversary that acts the way China does, which is unrestricted warfare and no more rules, no more pretensions of being decent, how do you deal with that, sir?
I was asked that question by other podcasters, no? Ibabalik ko dun sa experience ng 1960s and 1970s. And it's the COD war. COD. COD is a fish. Okay, fish.
Yes.
COD war between the United Kingdom or yung Britain at saka Iceland in the 60s, 70s. Wala pang UNCLOS noon. Wala pang Convention on Law of the Seas. Wala pang konsepto ng exclusive economic zone. Okay? At that time, kasi the UNCLOS was crafted, was ratified 1982 pa eh. That was
1970s.
So, they were fighting over fishing grounds. Yung COD, kaya nga COD war eh. Away ng isda. And you have here a situation where on one side you have the British fleet or the Royal Navy that was a well-equipped navy, okay? And you have Iceland that practically has no navy. They just have a very small flotilla or squadron of Coast Guard vessels. Okay? So nag-aaway sila sa dagat. And ang away nila doon, bungguan din. Okay? Bungguan din sila. Ang pinantapat ng Iceland, I think, are tugboats. Tugboats yung pinambubunggo nila doon sa mga warship ng British Navy.
Mm.
And in the end, ang nanalo Iceland.
Mm.
Okay. But the resolution of that conflict was of course resolved politically. Okay. It was resolved politically, not through conflict. But the point is, pinaglaban nila yung karapatan nila sa dagat, sa karagatan nila with whatever resources they have. Binuhos nila 'yon. Okay? Now, if you go to i-google mo yung mga research or studies on that conflict.
Cold War.
Tapos
Okay.
okay. Titingnan mo kung bakit nanalo yung Iceland. Ang lalabas doon, yung pinaka-primary factor doon, national will. Yun ang nagpanalo sa kanila, national will. Hindi yung equipment. It's yung national will of the people tsaka nung government nila to fight for their rights. Kaya sila nag-prevail.
So, sir, in our situation at the moment, do you think the DND is doing enough, or do you think it's on the right track?
Siguro to be diplomatic about it. Siguro kasi mga kaibigan ko rin yan nandun. So, pwede pang improve. Pwede pa. There's a large room for improvement pa naman.
Mm-hmm. Kung may room for improvement, ito po, may question kasi na pumasok or related to my previous question. Kasi we've been called a vassal state of the US daw. And do you agree that the Philippines may become a Ukraine 2.0? And do you agree that the actions of the US in the West Philippine Sea is because of the Monroe Doctrine? And there are also posts stating that Escoda Shoal has been taken by China already. So what is the real score? Ang haba-haba naman ng question ni Alex. So, putulin natin.
Deconstruct natin yung question.
Opo, sige po. So, kanina nasabi na natin, no, we are not a vassal state of any other country. We have agency. But then, sir, do you agree that the Philippines could turn into a Ukraine 2.0?
Okay, address mo natin yung term na vassal state, which is yun yung sina-charge sa atin ng Alam mo, ang kasi sa China, kung ano yung sinabi niya actually, yun yung yun yung kanya kumbaga,
yes,
nagbo-boomerang. It's actually how China frames its relations with Southeast Asia.
With other countries. Opo.
Dito sa Southeast Asia, ang tingin niya vassal states lahat.
Mm-hmm.
So ipo-project niya yung concept niya to other countries. With this case, United States. Okay.
Right,
But
right.
siya yung tumitingin na vassal state kayo. So you act like a vassal state to me. Okay?
Right.
And it actually confuses them and creates problems for them kasi yung Pilipinas doesn't act like a vassal state to China.
Aha.
So, okay. So, yun yung problema nila eh. You are not acting the way you should act. Okay, that's one. Pangalawa, kaya nga I've been emphasizing kanina about national interest and agency. Okay. As much as ally natin yung United States, we don't want them to interfere in a way na kumbaga mananaig yung national interest nila over our own national interest. And tama yung in a way I understand yung point nung ni Alex about yung Ukraine, no. In like manner, wag na lang Ukraine. Balik tayo ng Scarborough 2012 situation. Kasi yun yung relevant sa atin. Ano yung pinakita doon? Ang pinakita doon that at the end of the day, the US will actions will be based on yung national interest nila.
Yes.
Okay? Not kasi ano yun? There is ito yung napag-aralan ko sa when I studied in the United States, no. Yung concept ng value of the object. Yung value of the object. Okay? Ano yung importansya ng objective na yon? In terms of, is it something to die for? Or it's something that we can compromise with? Okay. So, ang tanong ngayon ng Scarborough Shoal is, from a American lens, is Scarborough Shoal worth dying for?
Mhm.
Okay. So, ano tingin mo ang sasagot ng American government sa public niya? Kasi mamalasin siya doon sa American public eh. Para doon eh. Remember, ano ba yung hugot nila? They have serious losses of American lives, Vietnam War, Iraq War, Afghanistan. Okay? So it's always an issue of valid ba yan? Okay? That's one, okay? From American lens. Pangalawa, balik tayo sa concept ng value of the object. Ikaw si American government. Ano yung i-value mo? Remember, hindi pa nagtagulo this is pre-Trump. Obama
Right.
Obama presidency.
Opo,
So,
opo.
at that time, ang tingin nila sa China, trade partner. Hindi strategic competitor. Okay? So, kung ikaw si American government, sinong kikilingan ko? Si Pilipinas na alay ko, pinaglalaban niya yung fishing ground niya sa Scarborough, o yung China na yung trade, meron akong trade relationship, tapos nagbe-benefit yung American companies doon sa trade relationship na yon. Sa tingin mo, sino bibigyan niya importansya? Of course, yung China. Okay?
Very pragmatic. Yes, I
So,
get that.
I mean, we need to strip down yung yung aesthetics yung palamuti eh. Kasi at the end of the day, nations will act based on selfish national interest. Yun ang totoo. And we cannot rely on the US to push for our national interest kasi it has its own national interest. Okay? So yun yung
Yes,
yun yung
that's
doon.
right.
So kaya ang personal ko rito, yes, ally natin si US, but we should not rely on the US too much, which is yun naman sinasabi ko kanina pa eh.
Yes.
We should not be dependent on that. Kailangan, we need to rely on our own. That's why we need to have that industrial capacity reinvigorated para hindi tayo nakadepende sa ibang bansa. Pangalawa, pangatlo na yata, sorry. I'm an advocate of a strong advocate of a trilateral arrangement between US, Japan, and the Philippines. Okay? Ang point ko naman dito is it mitigates yung yung asymmetry of power between US and the Philippines. Okay? It mitigates yung kasi may third party, may third wheel ka eh. Kumbaga may kaprisam ka dun sa relationship, which is Japan. Pangalawa, pag nag-over-aggressive si US, I think dalawa tayo, kaya natin i-temper down si US. Okay? Ang tingin ko kasi sa Japan is a resident power. Kumbaga, pareho tayo ng barangay na kinamumulatan eh. Pareho tayo na sa East Asia. So yung calculations natin with respect to China, halos pareho lang. Kasi yung proximity natin, pareho lang eh. Yung challenges natin, pareho lang. Tayo sa Scarborough, sila sa Senkaku. Si US, although there is an argument na Pacific power din siya, but it is not a resident power. Kasi kung binakla siya, pwede siyang tumakbo sa mainland US eh. Magtago na lang siya doon eh. Safe na siya eh. Tayo, nandito tayo sa frontline. Saan tayo pupulutin ngayon? Okay? Yung interest niya sa East Asia is is a function of policy. Policy niya yun eh. And strategy. But if push comes to shove, meron siyang option to withdraw. Tayo wala eh. Kasi andito tayo sa barangay na to eh. Hindi mo naman pwedeng galawin yung barangay natin.
Yes.
Okay. Now, binanggit yung Monroe Doctrine. It is actually yung doctrine na I think China is looking at as a model. Okay, ano ba yung basically ano yung framing ng Monroe Doctrine? Number one, ayoko makialam sa Monroe, I believe is an isolationist eh. Kumbaga, as long as protected si Homeland America, tapos meron akong Atlantic Ocean at Pacific Ocean na protecting me, I am isolated from any threat. Okay? I'm isolated from any threat coming from Asia or Europe. So safe ako dito sa Amerika. Yun ang basically Monroe Doctrine. The subcomponent of that Monroe Doctrine is yung dagat na malapit sa akin, I dominate that. Akin yan. Okay? Sa akin yan. So ang example ko rito yung Caribbean Sea. If you're familiar with the Caribbean Sea, that's where yung mga Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, etc. Doon yung that's Caribbean Sea. When the US emerged as a major power in the 18th century, pinatalsik na niya yung ibang navies doon. Ano ba yung mga navies na namamayagpag ng time na yon? Yung British Royal Navy, yung Spanish Navy, Portuguese Navy. Okay. So, French Navy. So, nung nag-emerge na si America nung 18th century, denominate na niya yung Caribbean Sea kasi dagat yan sa kalapit ng homeland ng Amerika. Okay. Now, punta ngayon tayo sa China. Ang conception ng China, yung North China Sea, East China Sea, tsaka South China Sea, yan yung Caribbean Sea niya. Okay. Yan yung Caribbean Sea. Akin ito kasi katabi ko to Katabi dagat ko to. Kaya ikaw, Amerika, kung ikaw may Monroe Doctrine, hindi ako makikialam sa ano mo. Huwag ka makialam dito sa dagat ko kasi akin to Okay. So kung itatanggalin mo lahat ng semantics na yung palamuti ng 9-dash line and international law and yes, go down to bare hard military power. Ang pinag-uusapan lang dito is ito yung dagat na malapit sa aking bansa. Ako dapat mag-dominate dito. Okay. Kaya China invested in a modern navy to make sure na yung North, East, and South China Sea, ito dominate niya. And right now, yung struggle natin with China is tayo Pilipinas, we are trying to fight off that domination na potential domination of yung South China Sea.
So, sir, yung takeaway ko from the long question and your very clarificatory answer. Number one, China looks down on Southeast Asia because remember in 2010, Yang Jiechi already told us in a forum, in an ASEAN forum, China is a big country and you are small countries, and that is just a fact. So, napakalinaw na talagang looking down on us. And then the second takeaway would be, if the US has something like the Monroe Doctrine, parang turfing na So if the US can do that, I can do that in my own backyard or in my own lake, which is the South China Sea. Naku po, medyo. Pero gusto ko po yung sinabi ninyo na China is confusing itself by thinking that we are a vassal state. China is already confusing itself because we are not acting like one. So parang iniisip ko parang judo. Can we not use that, their own strength against them?
Kung titingnan mo, Karen, yung bardagulan natin ng public opinion between Beijing and Manila, makikita mo yung undertones ng struggle nila to actually understand why we're behaving in a way that we're behaving now. Diba? So, parang yung handle nilang propaganda nila is parang off, diba? If you actually look at it. Or,
actually, nagwawala na sila, sir,
Yeah, kasi nag-struggle sila to understand why we're behaving in such a way that hindi nagko-conform dun sa nila, sa worldview nila of countries like us. Okay. And
so,
again, ibabangga mo ngayon dun sa behavior ng other ASEAN member states, which behaves in a way that China is kumbaga acceptable to China. Kumbaga kung siya yung neighborhood uncle mo, tapos may mga maliliit na bata, tayo yung pasaway. So we still try to
Tama.
figure out bakit tayo pasaway. Well, the rest of the ASEAN member states, very cooperative, very docile, nakikinig sa kanya. Okay, sunod-sunuran sa kanya, tayo hindi. Okay. Ganun ang Pilipino, ano magagawa natin?
Aberrant daw tayo. Tayo yung outlier sa ASEAN. Pero sir, so since we've been discussing this, no, ASEAN and our neighbors and China, how we behave. Kasi yung black propaganda nila or yung propaganda ng China, syempre umaabot ng Pilipinas and may mga makapili talaga dito sa ating bansa. Hindi naman yun lingid sa ating kaalaman. Most recently, they've been talking about us losing Escoda Shoal. So, what do you think about this? Kasi we have not lost Escoda Shoal, di ba? Dahil we just successfully resupplied BRP Sierra Madre. So, sir, bakit nila sinasabing we've lost Escoda Shoal?
Ito yung no? So let's look at it from big picture muna tayo. Strategy. Kasi ang challenge, ang challenge kasi is if you look at the entire West Philippine Sea as a front line, okay, that's yung strategic picture mo. But there are tactical actions happening. And yung tactical actions mo, yun yung Scarborough Shoal, Ayungin Shoal, Escoda Shoal. So lahat yan, may mga ongoing actions yan. Scarborough, napaikutan nila. Okay? But yung question, yung challenge, yung tanong na loss is, it depends eh. It depends yung question na yan eh. Kumbaga, it's a yes or no. It can be answered with a yes and a no eh. Yes, we are going to lose those shoals if we do not fight for them. Okay? And no, because atin yan eh. By operation of international law, sa atin yan. Okay? Now, paano ba ito? Babalik ko dun sa I use yung analogy ng basketball in some other podcast.
Sige po.
Ganito, Ganito, para madaling intindihin. Okay. In a basketball game, there are two teams. Okay. Now, very basic doon. If you do not go to court, ibig sabihin, if you do not play in court, you are by default talo ka. Okay. If you do not play in court. So, kung yung team mo hindi dumating doon sa basketball court, by operation of the rules, talo ka. If yung team mo pumunta lang doon sa around the basketball court, pero you do not send your players inside the court, by default talo ka. Okay? So dito, ang analogy ko rito, ang kalaban nating China, yung first 5, second 5, tsaka third 5 nila, nasa court. Okay. Tapos sinama pa nila yung cheerleading squad, yung cheerleading team nila nandun din sa court. Okay. Yun yung kalaban mo. Tayo, Pilipinas, ang ginagawa natin, hindi mo na nga pinadala yung 5-man player team mo, yung 5 guys mo. Ang ginagawa natin, pinapadala natin isang tao o isang player, dalawang player. And they're not even staying in the game. Kumbaga, papakita lang for 5 minutes, then babalik na naman sa pitcher. Okay.
Sir, pero yung question, kaya po ba nating magpadala ng buong team?
Hindi, kasi that's a capacity issue.
Ayan.
Okay. Capacity issue yan. And that is, yun yung argument na we lost many years procrastinating. Kasi we did not build our capabilities. So ngayon, nagka-catch up tayo. We are catching up. Ang question is, can we catch up? Yes, we can, I think, over time. But we need to get around yung mindset natin, yung babalik tayo dun sa usapan natin kanina about we need to jump technologies. If we rely on existing technology, hindi tayo makakahabol. We need to jump. to emerging technologies para makahabol tayo. And that means,
Opo.
kumbaga, if you're running a business, you have to change yung paradigm of the business mo ng business mo.
Mhm.
If you use the same model or the same framing, hindi ka competitive sa market. Okay? So kumbaga, you need to be agile. You need to adapt to emerging technology. Okay? And you have to be agile in your mindset in solving the problem. Okay? Baka yung doctrine ang ginagamit natin hindi na ubra. And we need to think of Again, ang babalikan ko diyan, ang best example ko yung Ukraine.
Mhm.
It's fighting a major power with minimal resources. Of course, suportado sila ng West. But essentially, sila yung nasa fronta. Okay? And it's sheer national will. Kasi pwede naman on day one, tumiklop na sila Tapos si Zelensky tumakbo
Opo.
din. Diba? Hindi naman siya tumakbo
That's
So,
right.
nag-hold the line sila. So, national will pa
Mhm.
rin yung importante. It's not equipment it's national will. Yung made sure na hindi sila matatalo, they're not winning. Kasi stalemate But at least
Mhm.
they're not losing. Totally losing.
Mhm. Very important po yun. So, sir, when you're saying national will, and then we are also cooperating with other countries, ito po kasi, di ba, recently, it's been in the news, ang dami-dami nating cooperation activities with Vietnam. May mga, parang yung mga navies natin, may mga bonding sessions. Bonding sessions yung tawag ko kasi, di ba, may games, may other activities. In one of the features in the West Philippine Sea area or in the SCS. And then recently, the defense, may Philippine-Vietnam Defense Pact. And do you think these activities, or at least the optics, are helping us?
Okay, frame natin yung problema muna. Okay.
Sige po.
Number one, we have problems with ASEAN.
Mhm.
I think you mentioned earlier, ang tingin ng ASEAN, outlier tayo.
Hmm.
That's one. Now, if you look at naman yung Navy-to-Navy engagement, we have a very good Navy-to-Navy relationship with the other ASEAN member countries.
Mhm.
Not only Vietnam, but Malaysia, Indonesia, etc. Okay, but that's Navy to Navy. Pero ang decision makers pa rin naman natin political elites
Right.
political leaders So even if we have good relations at the ground level among navies, at the end of the day, ang nagmamatter doon is ano yung direction ng nila yung direction ng kanilang political leadership And the direction of political leadership nila is towards China. At least majority of them. Okay? Now, ang tingin ko naman pagkukulang natin as a government siguro, is kahit ganun sana yung sitwasyon, yung parang medyo hindi tayo popular doon sa barangay natin, dapat inaano pa rin natin nililigawan pa rin natin kumbaga ini-engage pa rin natin sila. Kahit ayaw nila yung ginagawa natin, hindi sila pabor doon sa China policy natin. The onus is on us to maintain that relationship. Actually, mas paigtingin pa natin. Kasi nga, lumalayo sa iyo napapalayo yung loob So, kailangan, hindi mo siya totally ma-win over, pero at least, you are communicating na andito lang kami. Okay? Even if we do not agree on strategy and policy, magkapit-bahay pa rin tayo. Okay? So, that's yung nakita ko nga.
Keep the community close. We have to keep our friends. So, keep the community close so that, kasi lumalapit na sila sa China, or from the very beginning tayo yung outlier or yung aberrant nga. So,
okay. So
this
we need to,
should be a strategy. Opo.
That should be part of a diplomatic strategy. Huwag natin silang iiwan o huwag tayo papaiwan. Okay? So, that's one. Now, yung Vietnam kasi special case yan. Okay? As I said earlier, maganda yung relations natin at the Navy to Navy level. Maganda rin yung relationship natin at the political level. And I think we're expanding that yung Coast Guard to Coast Guard relations din. I think that's another venue for engagement. So, at least lumalawak yung spectrum of cooperation natin with Vietnam. So, yun yung nakita ko doon. So, we need to strengthen that. But because we have problems with ASEAN, we need to look at other partners. And ang akin namang grounding dito is yung Pilipinas at the outset, hindi natin kaya tapatan yung China on our own. We do not have the military or diplomatic gravitas to go toe-to-toe with China. I think as much as we hate it, we have to accept na from the size alone, lamang talaga sila. Okay. Kasi we need to accept that reality. But it doesn't mean na limited yung options natin or we just give up. Okay. So dito, we need to look at what are the other countries na pwede nating katuwang, kumbaga. So I mentioned earlier yung advocacy ko na strengthen yung trilateral engagement between US and Japan. Okay? We can look also at other countries na like South Korea, okay? Or other Western countries like Canada or Australia. Okay. But you have to accept na each of those countries are operating also on their own interest. Okay. So dito, when we see cooperation with other countries, we're not looking for yung parity of interest. We're looking for convergence. Kasi there are interests that hindi tayo magkatugba. So doon tayo titingin sa interest na pwede tayong magkasundo. Okay? And I think dito naman nagkakasundo tayo na with these countries I mentioned that China is an emerging problem in the region. And we need to look at solutions that requires cooperation among like-minded democracies. Okay? So yun yung yun yung tinitingnan natin. So if you look at it from a diplomatic track, you're trying to maintain yung relations natin with ASEAN despite the challenges. Then we're looking at emerging relationship with other countries. Ang tawag ko rito, I wrote a parang op-ed in one of yung ICS, a foreign publication. I use the term Northeast Asian Minilateral Dialogue. Okay. As opposed to yung Southeast Asian, which is ASEAN. Okay. So para bang we need to look where we have been oriented towards the Southeast historically, and we're having problems with that part of yung region. So the other one, the opposite would be, we also need to look at the Northeast. Okay. And those are the countries like Japan, South Korea, and of course yung US is part of that dynamic. The other one would be yung elephant in the room. Yung pinatawag natin elephant in the room, which is Taiwan. Okay. Because yung ating foreign policy looks at yung one China policy. So nako-constrain tayo dyan. But whether we like it or not, the curse of geography is that Taiwan is our northern neighbor. And what affects Taiwan will have an impact on at least northern Philippines. Okay? So part ng natin yan, ng interest natin that nothing changes in terms of status quo doon sa norte natin. Ang implication niyan is dumadami yung problema natin kasi before we're looking at West Philippine Sea or South China Sea lang. Now, kung ano man yung nangyari sa Taiwan, kailangan din natin i-track yun. Hindi mo pwedeng bibitawan siya. There's another area that is emerging as a potential problem dito naman sa Mid-Pacific. Kasi pumasok na yung China ron sa Solomon Islands and some of the other island states doon sa Mid-Pacific. Very strong yung influence ng China in those areas. Ang tinatarget ng China doon are those island states that used to be the former naval bases ng Japanese Navy tsaka ng US Navy during the Second World War. So makikita mo kaagad yung yung method to the madness nung approach ng China eh. Yung extent of maritime ambition niya. And to be objective about it, makita mo magmamangha ka rin kasi yung coherence ng strategy niya.
Right.
Okay.
Very thorough.
Okay. And that makes it more dangerous for us. Kaya ang akin naman kasi ito naman ako yung from my professor when I was still taking my masters. Ang sabi niya sa class, if you want to be a successful revolutionary, you have to offset or mitigate your lack of resources with a superior strategy. Okay. So ibig sabihin, if we are to be successful, we need to look at having a superior strategy than China. Okay. Not necessarily superior in resources. Kasi kung nakatutok lang tayo sa resources, labanan ng pera yan eh. And we know naman yung limitations natin in terms of financial resources, both for government and private sector. Okay. So we need to be more, we need to use our brains. Kumbaga.
Oo nga po. So, sir, I think you mentioned this in one of your guestings kay Christian Esguerra yata. You were saying, ang China kasi, China has a 40-year strategy or a 40-year plan, as you were saying, but we only have plans every 6 years. So, how do you think we should work now, knowing that this is their strategy, that they have a very long game talaga sila? Paano po yung dapat nating gawin? Ano yung, how do we start? Or have we started on this already?
Okay, China is in China Dream. And China Dream is it terminates on 2049. Okay. Kasi that's the naka-benchmark yan sa 100 years. Baga 1949. So yun yung nila. Programming nila that they will achieve yung quote-unquote China Dream. Okay. And that means yung strategy nila is generational. Okay. Now, ang tayo naman kasi, sinabi ko 6 years because yun yung extent
Term
ng
of office.
ng term of office ng president eh. And we've experienced the shift from Duterte to Marcos, from one 6-year term to another ongoing 6-year term. Makita mo yung dramatic shift, no? And it sort of throws a monkey wrench on long-term planning. Parang boom and bust cycle tayo every 6 years. We nagre-reset tayo. It has its benefits, but it also has its pitfalls, kumbaga. That we need to know. Ang ideal sana, of course, in an ideal world para sa Pilipinas, sana ang national security strategy mo is agnostic. When I say agnostic, it's not tucked into yung political agenda ng existing administration, but rather it's a continuing program. Siguro ang best analogy mo diyan would be yung Ambition 2040 nung inambag yun, which is yung economic plan. Okay? I don't know if it's strictly followed by even today, but at least there was an agreement among our economic planners when it was crafted that as far as the economy is concerned, we need to look at a long-term time frame. So sana ganun din yung national security natin, framing, long-term din.
Oo nga po. We hope that... Pero sir, nasimulan na po ba natin to? Sorry, makulit, pero I really have to ask that.
Parang hindi pa kasi that's a paradigm shift that we need to yun yung struggle namin sa security sector is yung boom and bust cycle na yun and nagbabago minsan yung priorities and ang hirap parang parang nakasakay sa kotse ang hirap magcambio from
Mhm.
fourth gear to first gear. Tapos diniretso mo. Kailangan dadahan ka mo ng third tsaka second gear bago ka makapag-minor Okay. So mahirap mahirap mag-shift.
Hello, sir. Alex here. I came in late because I was uh, having a dinner earlier. So I wanted to ask, uh, sir, if you are, kumbaga, you are for a long-term national security strategy or foreign policy. May mga countries ba na you mentioned kasi agnostic approach. Can you give us countries that have this kind of policy when it comes to foreign policy or national security?
Unfortunately, Alex, most countries like us,
Mm.
which are grounded on liberal democracy, or at least aspiring to, if not totally in compliance with the principles of liberal democracy, talagang ganun talaga yon, by cycles yung planning. Okay. And I think that's, whether we like it or not, that's how we are postured Kasi the only countries that can do that long-term planning would be, for national security, are authoritarian states. Okay.
Right.
So we have to accept that. Now, if we do that, it should be a consensus among political elites. Okay.
Oo nga.
That it should be a consensus among political elites. Whatever political party or affiliation or whatever dynasty you belong to. Okay. There should be a consensus na okay, we do not touch that. We can fight on other issues or other policy discourse, but for national security and economy, let's agree that we need a long-term plan. We can debate on the details, but on the execution, but at least we can agree on pag-frame ng problem and yung pag-frame ng solution. Okay. So, it's hindi madali. Madaling sabihin pero mahirap gawin. Okay.
Do you
Pero-
suggest do you suggest na okay, we are, kumbaga, yung form of government natin is presidential system. So to be able to sustain this kind of strategy, do you think we need to have constitutional reforms, a change of government structure, let's say from presidential magiging parliamentary siya, so that because of our situation now, more on tayo kasi, presidential and personality politics. So when you introduce, let's say, a parliamentary, I mean, if it happens in the near future, mas nasusustain yung approach or yung strategy when it comes to foreign policy. Let's say, mag-extend yung, if we have parliamentary, then it's mas mababalance yung approach, right? Magiging adaptive siya doon as the situation depends on the situation. Hindi na siya more on because of patronage politics or personality politics. So do you recommend changing the structure or ano ba yun? What's going to be a practical para ma-sustain natin yung ganitong approach with our foreign policy or national security?
Alam mo, Alex, I don't want to touch that kasi that's gonna open up a lot of
Indeed,
debate
yeah,
on areas na that is not my expertise,
yes.
no? So,
Okay.
siguro what I can kumbaga throw a bone na lang doon sa question mo para ma-solve natin. One of our respected senior generals that I look up to. I won't mention his name baka he doesn't want to be But ang idea niya is a commission. Okay, if you're familiar with naman, commission on audit,
Yes,
commission on election.
Autonomous.
They're autonomous, di ba? Tapos yung term of yung term nila goes beyond
Constitutional
one administration. Kumbaga
body.
nagko-crossover sila.
Okay.
Nagko-crossover sila ng administrations. Okay. So ang kumbaga yung one practical solution would be a sort of a national security commission that oversees yung planning and execution of national security policies across administrations. So that
Good
may be
suggestion,
one
yeah.
practical solution without actually looking at yung total shift of the way we run government from presidential to parliamentary. Okay. So siguro yun, pwede yun.
This is different from yung National Maritime Council. Kumbaga yung National Maritime Council, it's an advisory board when it comes to our strategy.
The council is a advisory council and it's only focused on maritime issues.
Okay.
By the nature of the beast, kumbaga siya so siguro ang pinaka one other venue for discourse on national security would be the National Security Council itself. Okay, but we've never for several administrations we've never convened the National Security Council. Okay, the reason being ayaw nilang i-invite yung previous administration na kaaway nila. Okay? Kasi
Right.
part of that part of the requirement, part of the way yung construct ng membership ng council is you invite all the living ex-presidents, okay, into the council to be part of the process of deliberation. So because most administrations do not want that to happen, so they do not convene the council. Ang kino-convene nila would be yung secretariat or yung the bodies within the
Parang-
council.
The working members po, no?
Yung working part of that council.
So, sir, we enjoyed this conversation with you, pero I have a last question po. So, we were looking inwards in this session, no? Nakikita natin kasi lagi yung what China does to us, but now, how do you think we should move forward without escalating and losing control of our features?
We need to make calculated risks.
Mhm.
We need to make calculated risks. I'm doing a paper now, no? Hopefully we can publish in halos patapos naman We're just making a final review. And we are looking at yung concept of what is our Filipino theory of victory.
Aha, that's nice.
What is your theory? Kasi it cannot be na yung theory of victory natin is papasok tayo sa isang gera with another country. Kasi that's a losing proposition. Okay. So ang doon is what is our theory of victory that we avoid conflict but at the same time we protect our interests. Okay. And as opposed to the other theories of victory. Ko lang no, for example lang, ibibigay ko lang example yung ang katunggali natin yung China and to some extent Russia. One author, I forgot yung he's a Western author, subscribes yung China and Russia operates at what he calls the red theory of victory. Okay? And dalawa yung component ng red theory of victory. Number one, na theory of victory nila is they will find ways to divide and conquer yung adversary nila. Okay? If they're able to do that, panalo na sila. They consider themselves panalo na tayo. Okay. The second component ng red theory victory is I will push and escalate yung situation up to a point na yung kaaway ko will be willing to give up an important national interest just to avoid escalation. Parang sounds familiar, di ba? Both components.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That is the red theory of victory. Yan yung katunggali nating. So kailangan natin tapatan ng Filipino theory of victory. Okay. To counter that. And if you are aware na yun yung theory of victory nila, we need to find a way to derail that. Okay?
Mhm.
So, when you look at yung division, kailangan natin magbuklod-buklod yung Pilipino eh. Kasi they are trying to divide us. So, kung ako si China, I don't have to go to war with the Philippines. All I need to do is create a situation within the domestic politics ng Pilipinas para distracted siya instead of looking at West Philippine Sea, mag-aaway-away na lang sila. Again, sounds familiar, di ba?
Yes. It's
Okay.
happening now.
The second one, yung component, is what is happening sa Skoda Shoal at saka sa Ayungin Shoal. Okay? I will push yung escalation ladder until mag-give up ka na. So ano ba ang gustong ginagawa ng China sa ating sa Skoda? They are escalating to a point, ang objective nila is to defeat yung will to fight natin eh, yung moral will to fight. Para bang sabihin, o sige na, para matapos na yan, bitawan na natin Skoda Shoal kasi ayaw natin ng away with China. Hindi natin sila kaya, malakas sila eh. Doon papunta yung ano nila, theory victory nila. How do we counter that? Okay. National will pa rin yun. Kasi yun yung national will natin ang tinitira nila eh. Hindi, kung titingnan mo yung if you step back, it's not about a physical conflict eh. It's about yung conflict of wills. Ang tinitira nila actually is yung sense of pagka-Pilipino natin, yung sense of ipaglaban natin yung ating karapatan as a nation. Okay. At yung strength, yung moral will natin. Okay. Yun yung inaano nila eh, yun yung tinitira nila eh. Kaya makita mo, mas may kung patitingnan mo, while violente yung actions nila sa dagat, makikita mo violente rin yung diskurso natin, yung bardagula natin sa ere. Okay. Kaya yung propaganda nila designed para mag-give up tayo. Okay. So yun ang nature of the beast, yun ang katapat natin.
Break the will. Yun yung ginagawa po nila sa atin, no?
Divide and conquer. Pwede rin, di ba?
Mhm. That's right.
Both.
So, seeing that, naku sir, napakadami po naming natutunan sa inyo ngayong gabi sa ating session na to. Pero sir, if we want to ask more questions or if we want to learn more about your work, how do we reach you? This is also for our listeners.
Reach me sa school ko. Ando lang naman ako eh.
Opo, pero any social media accounts that you would like us to post for you sa X or Twitter?
I have I think that's how Pi connected to me sa X. So that's one.
Okay. Sige po. And
Yung
sige.
Facebook ko, that's for family, so don't use that.
At the very least naman, sir, kahit papaano naman, if we can reach you through Twitter, okay na po yun. So we are also updated with what you're doing, and also if we wish to ask more questions, kasi talaga enlightening yung ating discussion for tonight. Mas mas pragmatic, mas practical, pero pa rin, yung within the bounds pa rin. Hindi naman po ninyo sinabi na go out of the boundaries of decency and ethical behavior, di ba? I mean, syempre hindi naman ninyo gagawin yon, unlike our adversaries. So, sir, last words, kung tayo po, kami na regular Filipinos, what do you think we should do, or what can we do to help in this struggle?
paglaban niyo yung pagka-Pilipino niyo. I think yun importante.
Mhm.
I'll give you an analogy, no? And it happened yung I had this parang eureka moment nung Kasi I have a bit dito sa yung during the May 15 civilian convoy. Tapos yung nakita natin yung actions in China. Nakita mo yung ang interpretation ko ron, natakot sila eh. Natakot sila kasi ang kalaban nila ordinary Filipinos na. Hindi
Right,
lang yung
right.
hindi lang gobyerno yung kalaban nila eh. Yung ordinary Filipinos yung katunggali nila. And ang nakita kong hugot nila rito is hindi natin na-discuss masyado, no? But I always frame yung China in this context eh. Hindi natin kalaban yung China as a nation or yung China as yung mga Chino as mga Chinese as a people. Ang kalaban natin yung Chinese Communist Party, yung partidong komunista ng China. Okay? I always frame it that way. Medyo hindi ko na-frame yun earlier in our discourse, no? So, yun ang kalaban natin, partido. Itong partido na to, takot sa sarili niyang mga population niya. Yung partido, takot sa Chinese. Okay? So, and I
That's
think
true.
ganun din yung nakita, parang eureka moment ko nung yung reaction nila. Takot sila sa ordinaryong Pilipino. More than takot sila sa gobyerno. And yung hugot nila is ganun. Ang analogy ko is yung same takot nila sa kapwa nilang incheck, yung ordinaryong Chinese, yun din yung nagre-reflect ng takot nila. Pag ang umalsa na yung ordinaryong Pilipino, buong bansa na yun eh. Kasi right now, ang katunggali nila, government eh, gobyerno eh. Iba na yung hubog niya pag yung masa na yung kalaban niya. Okay. That creates a totally different architecture in terms of yung conflict. Okay. So, yun lang yung medyo late ko lang nabahagi. That's it.
Okay lang po, sir. Very, very helpful pa rin naman. So, sir, thank you very much for joining us in this session of SITREP PH. You have been sharing with us your very, very invaluable thoughts and such wisdom, no?
Okay. Maraming salamat din for inviting me.
And this has been SITREP PH, the podcast on Philippine affairs and Filipino interests. This has been Karen hosting. Be sure to follow our social media for updates on our upcoming podcasts and access to old episodes. We are at SITREP PH on X and on YouTube. Like us also on Facebook /SITREP PH Philippines. Thank you and good night. Mabuhay.